You are about to meet an American hero, an American original. John Happy Gilmore bills himself as the original Happy Gilmore. He has served this nation as a Marine for a very long time in some really hot spots around the world. Oh, and by the way, he's also the military long drive champion, and he has a unique dream he'll share at the end of our conversation. So enjoy in the moments ahead meeting the original Happy Gilmore. It was just a couple of weeks ago at the Garmin Charity Golf Invitational that I had the chance to meet our featured guest today. And he was part of this golf event where he would hit bombs for every team as they came through the 18th hole at the Links of Novi. And he did that for us as a TV crew on camera to close out the TV show that we produced there. And I sat back and watched a little while as his energy really infused each of the teams that came through, because John Happy Gilmore brings the energy with him. And I thought you all might want to hear from him and learn some of his story, because it goes quite a bit deeper than just hitting long drives and somehow torturing his back a day after day. So Happy, how are you?
I'm good, Mr. Bill. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It was fun out there that day. How many full speed long drives would you say you hit during that very packed outing?
Oh Lord. Well, I think Rob said the final number was 39 groups, and I hit probably two or three at least for each group. So I mean, you do the math. There's 120 some odd plus shots.
How on earth did you manage to remain upright after a day of that kind of swings? Because for folks here, obviously if they're listening to the podcast or watching us on YouTube, we don't have B-roll of that swing, but it is nuts. I mean, it's full bore, and I don't have any idea how you could do it that many times.
You know what? I tell people, I'm like, you know what? I'll just deal with my body tomorrow, and lots of ibuprofen.
Well, let's kind of tell the story. Let's pull back to the wider view of what led to John Happy Gilmore being involved in the game to start with. I should also mention at the very outset that you are the 2021 military long drive champion. So you've got obviously some service in your background as well. Why don't you take us to that part of your backstory? What branch of service and what got you in?
Well, I'll actually go back a little bit before that. So honestly, growing up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, huge golf industry there. And I'd say somewhere around about my seventh, eighth grade year of school, so 1994, somewhere in there, my aunt had got me into golf, and just kind of took off from there, and played a little bit for the high school team. And then towards the end of my junior year, early senior year of high school, I just, I was that typical 18-year-old kid where I'm just kind of like, what's next? What am I doing? So one of my buddies came in, and he was like, "Hey man, I just went and joined the delayed entry program for the Marine Corps. You should go talk to the recruiter." And I was like, "Okay, sure, why not?" So went and talked to the recruiter. Gave me a little bit of background information about some of the things. And so I was like, all right, cool. Well, let's take the test and let's see how we do. Did very well on the ASVAB, and kind of a little bit of a left fielder here, but believe it or not, I had originally intended to join the Marine Corps to be in the band. And because I was 7 years of band in middle school and high school in marching band. And so sat down with the recruiter.
What instrument?
I actually played all brass. I started off on trumpet and then kind of just dabbled in a little bit of everything else. And my band director was just kind of like, "Hey, I need you to try this one. I need you to try this one." I'm like, "Okay, sure."
Well, you're talking to an old trumpet player here. That's why
there you go.
Oh.
There you go. But yeah, so then I sat down with the recruiter, and it was just one of those things. I was like, you know what? I love music, but music is not my passion. And so he was like, all right, well, here's all the things you're qualified for. And I'm just going down the list, and I see combat engineers. And I'm kind of like, oh, well, that's cool. What is that? He goes, oh, man, those guys are awesome. He's like, basically, they build it or blow it up. And I'm kind of like, yes, please. So because growing up, my dad dabbled a little bit in construction just to help my mom with some interior design things, and just playing with wood and hammer and nails for all those years, got pretty good at it. So just construction has just been in my background since, I don't know, 5 years old when my dad handed me a hammer. Um, so then, yes, that was one of those things. Signed up to be a combat engineer. 2 or 3 months after I graduated high school, I get a phone call and be like, hey, do you know your buddy Cole Williams? I was like, yeah, I've known Cole forever. She was like, how would you like to go to boot camp together? I was like, great. She's like, you leave next week. And I'm like, oh, okay. So August 10th, 1998, I stepped on those famous yellow footprints, and the rest was just great. Got to actually go through combat engineer training. Then I did my first 3 years there at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where deployed to Greece. Did a couple other little small things there. Then I went to Japan and did my 1 year tour in Okinawa at Camp Hansen. And then that was the time frame that September 11th happened. And so, obviously doing all these years of training to go, do your job and get back to the States after my 1 year rotation. And I'm back in Cherry Point, North Carolina. And so we start doing buildups. And then I think it was January or February of 2003, we fly into Kuwait, set up our shop, and literally in the middle of the desert. And it was, God, maybe a few weeks later, we were just right behind the front line, breaching into Iraq and just kind of going here and there to, to build up infrastructures, as well as, go clear lanes with explosives and all sorts of fun things. But that's what I joined for. That's what we train for. So it's one of those things where you actually get to go do your job. It's the greatest thing ever. And being able to serve and protect our country to do it, it's, there's no better combination, in my opinion.
Man, that's an amazing journey. And, let me take you back to when you were first presented with the list of possible directions to take within the Marines. I'm guessing nowhere on there was golfer. I don't think they have a high demand for golfer in the Corps. But you were inspired to even take the journey by a friend who said, this is what I'm doing, maybe you should do it too. Was there a point at which, after you signed up and you were going through all of the training, you're getting yelled at, you're doing push-ups, you're running in the rain, you're getting up at 4 a.m., you got to bounce the quarter off the bed, you got to do all these different things that are very exacting, they're very demanding, and if you don't do them right, then there's going to be some repercussions. Was there ever a time when you looked at your buddy and said, why did you get me into this?
Honestly, no, not really. Even with all the chaos that was going on, yeah, in the back of your mind, you're going like, what in the world have I done? But the camaraderie and all the motivation that not just my buddy, but just we built as a family going through basic training, it's just one of those feelings where you're like, well, I've got to motivate this guy, because I know he's probably having a bad day. And in turn, he'll throw it right back at me. So, building all those team skills and camaraderie it's a huge motivator. It's a huge push. So yeah, you always got that little guy in the back of your mind, but knowing what's ahead of you it's worth all the pain.
You and I are talking on September 14th. And so the anniversary of 9/11, just a couple of days ago. Can you kind of take me back to that moment when all of us were witnessing the same thing, and just horror and fear and then a lot of anger? What did What did that day do to you?
Well, so I was in Okinawa, Japan when it happened. So I want to say it was like a 10, 12 hour difference. So I was actually in bed asleep, and our duty NCO, he's knocking on everybody's doors. He'd be like, "Hey, get up. We just got bombed." And I'm over here going like, "How did I sleep through that?" And so then we all went down to the little duty shack where the TV was, and we're all just sitting there going like, I mean, it's such shock to where you're just kind of like, "There's no way this isn't real. This is crazy," and just to sit there and watch it on repeat and everything. It just, yeah, you want to talk about blood boiling. I mean, there's really no way to put that in words. And so again, when you move forward a few years, and I went on my first deployment, you know, even though I didn't get to physically see the bad guy in the eyes, just knowing that we were over there, basically, you know, defending our country for what had happened. There was a big swell of pride in that. But yes, absolutely, there's a ton of anger that even today, still hits home a little bit, just because when you watch these news reels on repeat, I mean, it just refreshes that memory like it was yesterday. So yeah, you get a little bit of that blood boiling anger, but at the same time, knowing that what we went and did, there's a good piece of pride that knows that not only did we, kind of get a little bit of satisfaction out of going over there and kicking the bad guys behind, but at the same time, we were also there to help a country that was just in total chaos. And to see the transition, which took quite a few years, to see the transition, the progress they made, there's a good little piece of satisfaction in that as well. So yeah, the anniversary still holds a pretty dear spot in my heart.
So you have all of these experiences. You're seeing the entire world. You're going into some fairly dangerous hotspots, and all of it's part of the job. It's part of the duty that you signed up for. Back in the sort of the context of golf, I can't imagine that you were able to keep a club anywhere near you during all of those deployments and those travels around the world. When did you get the chance to resume playing the game that you loved as a kid?
Well, so the craziness is the almost 15 years that I was in the Marine Corps, I had been to 20 different countries. I mean, I was in Ireland 3 times and not one round of golf. Um, so yeah, 15 years. I've been to 20 different countries. I don't play any golf just because I've got different priorities and thoughts. And then after my last deployment to Afghanistan, I was medically retired about a year and a half after that. And then when I got back home to Charleston, South Carolina, it was one of those things to where I was like, oh, the golf club sat in the corner of the garage, didn't really pay him much attention. And then one day, one of my buddies, he goes, "Hey," he's like, "I'm gonna go to the driving range this afternoon." I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna go with you just to see." And got out there, didn't even have my clubs. I was using his clubs. And and it's like that old saying, it's like riding a bike. You get out there, you take a few swings, and you're like, okay, all right, this could still be a thing. But then at the same time, it was also a reminder of a lot of my spinal issues, which just real quick, I've got C2 through 6, T1 through 4, and L4, L5, S1 that are collapsed, degenerative.
What?
Two of my vertebrae are actually fusing themselves together. And I've been to 7 different neurosurgeons, and nobody will operate on me because they're like, "Oh, you're too young. There's too much risk. We could paralyze you." And I'm just kind of like, "Hey, good answer. I'll keep ibuprofen." Uh, so, um, so yeah, so that's where it kind of got into. And then I, knocked the dust off of my old clubs and got out, played a few rounds of golf, and I was like, okay, we can still do this. We just got to work around some issues. And then, being my clubs were ancient, the grips were falling apart. I went to a local golf shop and had some grips done. And I asked for a military veterans discount. And the guy was like, "Oh my God, thank you for your service, blah blah blah." He's like, "Here, no charge." And he was like, "Oh, by the way, have you heard of PGA Hope?" And I was like, "No, sir, I haven't." He's like, "You need to get in touch with this gentleman. It's golf therapy for veterans, which we know how therapeutic golf can be some days."
Yeah.
Um, so I showed up to one of the local clinics, met a lot of different people, a lot of different backgrounds, all military veterans. And as they're rotating us through, the putting greens and teaching us some things and the chipping and all the long full swings and everything, I get up and I'm just hitting some drives, not really paying any attention to it. And he comes over to me and he's just like, "Why aren't you doing long drive?" And I'm like, "I have no clue." And so, long story short, he gave me a couple of people to get in touch with. I went and bought a club knowing absolutely nothing about long drive. I show up to my very first event and I finished second place. And I was like, "Okay, well, that was a lot of fun."
What year
Then
is
went to
that?
the next one. Let's see, that was 3 years ago now. Yeah, yeah. This is my third season. And yeah, my first season, I finished number one ranked military, second at nationals, third in worlds, and then later on winning it. And it's been a fun road. I've met so many people, which is great, and which is how it ties into to meeting you
Yeah.
2 years ago at the PGA show.
Yeah.
One of my buddies invited me down to help him with the events. I was like, "Yeah, sure." To go down there and just I shook more hands than I think I've ever shook in my life. And you saw my outfit. I blend in very well with the crowd.
Right. Yes.
um, and so I'm walking around and bump into Rob and tell him I'm a veteran and long drive and all that. And he goes, "I want you to come up and work my tournament in Michigan." I'm just kind of like, "Hey, that'd be great." And they flew me up and took care of me. Took us out to the dinner event, and then my first thing at the tournament, because Rob was sitting there telling me, he's like, "You're going to be amazed at how wild and crazy this tournament is." And I'm kind of like, "Yeah, I've heard that before." And he was not kidding. I
No.
mean, but hands down, one of the best tournaments that I get to participate in every year. And when we say wild and crazy, we don't mean anything bad. We're talking about the excitement, the different things that he puts on, having the local military involved, having the local TV shows and everything. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the tournament, how it's run and what it benefits. I mean, how can you go wrong?
John's referring to a Rob Guzanek from Garmin who leads this incredible outing. That's where we met. I'm curious, as you were getting immersed into now, not the world of really competitive golf for score, but the different but tangentially connected world of long drive. And really, it is a very different world from a normal golf tournament. Your score, all that matters now is the number on that distance and keeping it on the grid. How long did it take you to kind of
Yep.
feel like I could do this? Because it can be intimidating to show up and see the guys who have done it for a while and
Oh,
realize
absolutely.
the numbers they're putting up, they don't seem human. I know you can hit those numbers now, but at the very beginning, did it overwhelm you at all?
Oh, absolutely. Well, again, my very first competition I went to, I was thinking, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna be the talk of the town, and not in a good way." And then to show up and to come in second place, and in fact, the guy who'd won it, I think he had been in his fifth, sixth, seventh season, somewhere in there, and he only beat me by 1 or 2 yards. But again, it's the longest drive. So I was completely excited and happy to come in second place behind such a great competitor. Um, and then to continue to progress and go to more competitions, bigger ones, more and bigger. And then you run into a lot of these big names that you see on TV, Kyle Berkshire, Martin Borgmeyer, Justin James, Scotty Pierman. I mean, to see these guys in person, and you're just kind of like, wow. I mean, dude, the emotional response you have is just kind of like, how is this humanly possible? Um, because just for an example, uh, one of my buddies, Josh Koch, he just recently, well, when I say recently, about a year or two ago, um, is overcoming an injury. And last season in Colorado, obviously they're at elevation, so the balls travel a little further. I mean, he set a record of 495 yards. And my
I,
first response was I
I couldn't do
messaged
that on
him
the
and
moon.
I was like, Josh, what's the matter? You couldn't get 5 more yards?
Right. Right. You got to crack the 500 barrier.
Exactly. But yeah, to see the level of competition and we've also been, I don't want to say really struggling, but we've been really trying to push the notion that long drive, we are athletes.
Yes.
We're not your football player lining up against another 300-pound guy, but the level of energy that we exert, some of the physical attributes that can distinguish you between a top tier athlete is incredible. Just as an example, we recently had a newcomer named Seb Twaddell. I believe he's from Australia, 22 years old. I think he's like 6'6", something like that. And he just set a club speed record and a ball speed record of almost 170 club head speed and over 240 of ball speed.
What?
Absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts.
I
And
can't
to
even,
watch the
I
way
can't even
he
comprehend that.
swings, yeah, to watch the way he swings, it's just kind of like mind blowing because you're like, how does that work?
Yeah.
But it's what works for each individual.
So John Happy Gilmore comes rolling up to the scene, and you all, if you're not watching us on YouTube right now, if you've never met John, you may be picturing a a closely shaven Marine because that's what he told us was his background. Instead, you need to be picturing a very sizable physical stature with facial hair like he's either out of ZZ Top or maybe Duck Dynasty, and a guy
I
who's
get both of those a lot.
yeah, yeah. So you have a physical presence to you. And yet in that world of long drive, I'm wondering if there's any benefit to trying to be physically intimidating. Do the guys do you assess each other based on look who's coming walking this way, or is it all about what happens off that club face?
It's honestly both. It really is. I'm 6'3", about 250 pounds. um, and I'm definitely one of the larger guys out there. But that really size doesn't always mean anything. In fact, who was it? Jamie Sedlowski many years ago in long drive, he was one of the smallest guys, one of the smaller guys, and was just complete animal, complete animal. And so, size, stature, physical background really doesn't play a lot. But at the same time, you have some of those names, like Kyle, Martin, Justin, Joe, all these names. And you're sitting there, you watch them walk the tee box, and you're just kind of like, this is about to get fun.
But John, just I don't know, 5 minutes ago, you quickly mentioned basically every vertebrae in your back. You're like, see, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I mean, it was like the entire inventory of your spine, and you're talking about how it's compressed, and nobody wanted to treat it. They told you to just keep popping IBUs. That doesn't seem like it's compatible with the profession that you've chosen. Did you early on? Did you experience pain or discomfort from doing what you do with the injuries that you have?
Oh, absolutely. And I tell people, I'm like, listen here, I'm in pain whether I'm sitting on my couch, whether I'm playing golf, or whether I'm just going complete full yard on the golf ball. I was like, I'm in the same pain no matter what I do. So I might as well have some enjoyment out of it while I do it. But at the same time, yes, when you're in a competition and you're going just as hard as you can for those 2.5 minutes, the following afternoon, morning, whatever, it can be a little challenging just to get out of bed, move around. But again, if I'm in pain, whether I'm sitting on a couch or doing what I love, why not get a little more satisfaction, gratification out of it, as well as when I'm doing these charities and helping these guys out. There's not a better feeling to me to be able to help, Rob with Garmin, John Daly, Major Ed with their Heart of a Lion, and several other ones. In fact, just yesterday, I was working a local tournament, met so many new people, some familiar faces as well. And at the end of the day, when I'm able to hand them however much money that I helped raise for that charity, knowing the benefit of what that charity does, how much better of a feeling can you have, even with the pain?
So percentage wise, competition swing versus outing 110 swings. It looks to me like you're going all out, because I can't fathom hitting the numbers that you're hitting, even in a charity outing. But you know your body, you know your swing. How hard are you going at it in a charity setting versus competitive?
Well, like when we met a couple of weeks ago, knowing that you're going to have so many groups all day long, yes, you try to pace yourself, but at the same time, these individuals are just like, oh my God, I just want to see you explode the golf ball. And so I'd say you range anywhere from 70 to 80%, give or take, of your full speed. And obviously, when you're in competition, you're going 110% as hard as you can, because again, so is the man or woman next to you. So if you hit it just that much faster or better than the guy to your left or right, that can be the difference between a yard, or it could even be the difference of going out of bounds.
Mm.
But yes, yeah, so knowing that you're going to have a full day of, we call it golf entertainment. I'd say 70, 80% with that occasional one or two swings, you go a little extra for, just depending on, it all depends on the excitement that the people bring to the tee box as well, because I mean, you saw, like I said, I try to blend in with the crowd. I try to stay in the background a little bit. So I'm always trying to, be the hype man, have the energy, because it's
Yeah.
just so much fun to see the expression on people's faces when you do this. And they're just like, what in the world?
Do you have competitive events on your schedule that bring you back into the long drive world on a regular basis? Are you part of the World Long Drive competition? Is there a defense of your military title? What's the actual competitive picture like for you right now?
So for this season, I haven't been hitting as many competitions just because I've had so many charity events that I've been traveling around helping out with. But I hit a few events earlier in the season, and then I've taken a break from competition while I work these charity events. But I believe it's the early October. I want to say October 3rd, 4th, 5th, I believe are the dates. I'll be going to Ultimate Long Drives World Finals in Columbia, South Carolina. And then I believe it's 2 weeks later, World Long Drive has their finals in Atlanta, Georgia, which I won't be competing in that one, uh, only because I'm currently 44 years old. So I don't want to swing against 20, 21, 22-year-old guys that don't have the medical problems. But so next year when I turn 45 and I'm in the senior bracket, I'm going to try my best to get out to more of these events, just because you know it is so much fun to be out there with these competitors, and yeah, and just laugh and joke around, and see the competition that's coming up. And uh, and to back up a little bit now, when I say I'm moving up to the senior bracket, that does not mean that those guys are still not just going completely insane on the golf ball. Like right now, one of your biggest seniors is Eddie Fernandez. I mean, he is just for 52. I think he's 52 somewhere in there, and I mean, and he still hits. He even competes in the open men's division at times, and I mean, he holds his own pretty well. And then you got Jeff Gavin, Zach Adams, several others that when you step up to that senior bracket, you don't get to take your foot off the gas even to the tiniest bit. So, but it's going to be a lot of fun to step up on the tee box against new faces for me, and just to see how I shake out in the rankings.
I have a requirement as as the self-appointed representative agent for John Happy Gilmore, which I've just given myself that position in the last 8 seconds. For all of you who are part of charitable events and you're bringing John in to do his thing for an entire day, and I got to witness it. It's pretty cool. There is a lot of energy. There's a lot of excitement, and there's a lot of donated dollars, which is the reason you do these charitable golf events. As his self-appointed agent, you all of you event organizers are hereby required to make sure he at least has an exit row seat on his flight back home. I I stood on the 18th and I said to John, "Where are you going next?" And trying to get a feel for his schedule. He's like, "Well, I get to go home for a couple of days." And I said, "You're flying home. Please tell me that they have exit row for you or first class, or bulkhead or something." Because like me, you're a big guy. And he's like, "No, I think I got a middle row, a middle seat and coach." I was like,
Yep.
"What?" After this day of torturing your spine, the least that everybody, so I'm going to require that now. It's going to be part of your rider. All right. So you run
All
it by
right.
me, and we'll make sure that you at least get some room to stretch out on these ridiculously overcrowded flights. And it reminds me again, if you're willing to put up with that, then your heart really is into all of this. And
Absolutely.
I can't thank you enough for sharing some of your journey with us, and for your service, for what you have done for this nation for all of
Thank
those
you.
years. And I care deeply about our veterans. It's one of the reasons that we were there with the TV show, because that event that Garmin put on was to benefit 4 different organizations. And
Great organizations too.
yeah, we got to meet representatives from each of them, and such powerful stories. And so thank you for being a part of helping your brothers and sisters who have served this great nation. And if all we have to do is fight to get you an exit row, we can do that.
I'll send you my schedule and have you pick my seats for future flights.
I am so in with that. I've perfected it over the years. I do not fly anywhere without getting at least the exit row. You got to do it, man. Man, it makes a difference for us. You don't want to have your knees touching your chin, and that's what happens now in the
No, mine are pretty much stuck in the metal armrest in the seats in front of me.
exactly. John, it's great to spend some time chatting with you. Now, my other goal as your self-appointed
Sir.
agent, by the way, is to somehow figure out a way to get you to meet Adam Sandler so that we can have John Happy Gilmore meet the original Happy Gilmore.
That you know what, that I've been trying to do that for quite some time, and it's funny you say that. That's my Instagram handle, is the original Happy Gilmore, and obviously if you look me up, you'll see the picture and you'll be like, that's him. But yeah, for a couple years now, I've been messaging Instagram or trying to find ways, because I would honestly love if I could get Adam to come out to a charity event and just have a little, fun competition, Adam Sandler versus myself, and just, see if we could raise some extra money for a cause, just to have some fun.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what, being you've got this platform for us, March 18th, I am trying to put together a golf tournament for myself here in Charleston, South Carolina at Daniel Island Golf Club, which is a very high-end private club. And I'm part of John Daly Major Ed's Heart of a Lion Foundation. So they're going to help me run this tournament. And, we're trying to get the word out to anybody, everybody, have a huge event, because if you're not familiar, John Daly Major Ed's Heart of a Lion Foundation is all about veterans, first responders, law enforcement, family members, and children, which is that's my wheelhouse, and I love it. So to be able to help them out and help raise some extra funds for them, and for them to turn around and help me run my tournament here in Charleston, it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. And yeah, so Adam, if you're out there watching, come on down, buddy. Let's have a little hit off and see how we do.
Stranger things have happened, my friend. So
Absolutely.
who knows where this message gets said sent and spread. And what we do know about Adam is that he's got a pretty good heart. So perhaps.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. So I'm hoping so.
All right, John, take care of yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Have a good one.